2015, the second half of my year in Boston. It is snowing, as it does in a New England winter, and with the weather, a lackluster winter 2015 anime season ends. Spring 2015 is around the corner, though, and it brings a multitude of incredible shows that will set precedents and cement a feeling I had been mulling around for years, that anime can do everything. On Saturday, the 4th of April, a total lunar eclipse occurs and the season began in earnest. In the lineup of shows that may have been the largest number of concurrents that I have ever watched at one time, JC Staff's Shokugeki no Souma aired its first episode. Adapting the manga of the same name, Shokugeki sets out to accomplish a task that is not easily done. Story, art, humor, action, hallmarks of the shonen genre, often exist without each other or only in brief passing. Successful shows manage these elements and stand out because of it, but even legendaries like Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Bleach fall short of a perfect weaving sometimes. Shokugeki does not fall short, not once thus far. A story of originality and perseverance, this seminal work promises everything and delivers it all on its head. This is not a standard show. Fights are not in a wasteland conveniently far away from the town. They are in the kitchen. Special laser beam moves are dishes invented on the fly, and while the adversary is still a classmate, they are fighting for the same goal as you are at Totsuki Academy. Style, craft, heart, and a double serving of equal opportunity fan service define the show, and never do the creators forget this. In a world where we expect to intake content that sacrifices some pieces for others, Shokugeki shows us that we can have our souffle and eat it too. I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, an anime podcast.
Yeah, dude. We did it.
There's another anime episode, this time minus the guest that was on the first anime episode that was ever done for this show, and plus regular co-host Jordan Schaffer, and recurring guest Kenneth Garman.
Hey, how's it going?
Dude, good. Thanks.
I'm doing great.
What'd you think? When did you watch it?
I started watching this season Saturday, so 2 days ago.
Okay.
2 days ago. I thought it was all right. Honestly, it was weird to me going from not watching it, or it was a year ago now that we watched season 3. And I feel like it was a weird stopping point.
It was, yeah.
Season 3, and then to start right into season 4, already in the second bout or whatever was going on. I was completely just jarred. I had to go back and watch a couple episodes.
Yeah, it was whenever you were saying earlier, Jordan, that you realized that you were only 6 episodes into the third season when you started watching to be ready for this episode. I thought that's probably kind of perfect because, just said, the third season ends in a weird spot. As far as continuity is concerned,
right,
to be able to just pick up at the fourth season a year and a half later, from between airings, I think it was 2 years.
It was.
It was difficult to do for me at the time.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being weird. Having just have it go seamless between the two. I thought for just a brief moment, oh, that's kind of a weird spot to stop, but a really cool place to start because we're right in the heat of all this stuff. Right. I also thought it was cool how they spaced out the whole first year over these 4 seasons, just because, I don't know, I always go 1-to-1, Harry Potter, 1 year to 1 book, just
right.
In my mind, that's the way it is. And so I was already thinking, when you don't think about this show for 2 years or whatever, and then you come back, you're shoot, plate 4, does that mean they're on their 4th year? I don't even think they have 4 years of high school in Japan.
It's 3 years, yeah.
So I was thinking wrong on a couple levels, but it's cool that we just now finished the first year in these 4 seasons because it like you were saying, it's a really good show. So I can't wait to see how it's going to grow in season 2 because they revamped the entire school. They basically rewrote all the laws and
taking over the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we went through just Central taking over the school and then losing power and everybody's connections to each other because it's not didn't even feel like Central was really evil. It just felt like he was. Well, it felt like it was. That one guy,
a misguided effort,
to
try and accomplish something that he perceived as
and it doesn't even
fixing a flaw in the system.
And his idea didn't even seem all that bad. It sounded kind of good, honestly. If you get everybody to this level, we're 5-star level. When it started getting bad was when he was getting rid of all the. Everybody normal.
Well, when they're squashing originality, is where it is wrong.
Getting rid of diners. I don't even care about really the originality because that comes by person, that you can still teach them the course curriculum and then let their originality bloom somewhere else. I only had the problem
But that was the exact opposite of what they were instituting. Their whole thing was that they were getting rid of originality. You follow the recipe, this is what gourmet is.
Right, but they also, ever since the beginning, they let people with talent shine through. Like, that was always...
Well, yeah, in the academy period, but
that was always a thing, even with this new leader in Central. That's the only reason, like, it even worked, because, well, I mean, Yukihira, like, he, of course, wins everybody over by, like, egging them on, like, no, try the food or whatever, like, are you scared? But it always felt like there was an element of, like, if you're still good, you can get through. Not just because it's
for sure.
Show,
like, yeah,
just because it seemed like that was... Central was going to say everybody has to know this curriculum, and then you're approved by Central. But then when it started to get weird for me was when it was like, now we're only going to have Central restaurants. Like, that's the only thing that can exist. And then they're going to destroy all that's when I guess I could say the individuality and stuff, like Yukihira Diner, that one would have closed down, and all these other obviously great spots would have, like, any hole in the wall, place would have shut down. So, I mean, I still think, like, I think that if they had just stuck it to the curriculum at the school, it would have been jarring, but doable, They could have raised everybody to some... That's how a real school would be. They would raise you to this curriculum level, not just let everybody go off wild and challenge each other and learn from battles. Like, this school doesn't make sense with the way they do it, but the way it was going to happen.
It makes sense with its student body, though, because its student body is full of aspiring chefs that can do things that nobody else can. And so, as you know, in this fantasy world, it works as a school, and it works as an idea for education, where they can, kind of hone abilities and skills and ideas, by getting education from people who have done it before. But they're all one, you have to be incredible to even get in. It's like insanely difficult to get into the school, and so inherently they're already elite, and so and they're also all able to bring something different, and that's what makes the school such like a prestigious and kind of beautiful place, is that it fosters an idea of doing things your way. And
is that the school that does that?
Yeah,
it feels more like the kids to me. It just feels like the group that we're...
It's a mutual relationship where, both the institution and the student body feed off each other and make that environment.
I mean, but they didn't in season 3. It was Central took over, and it didn't let them do that.
That's what I'm talking about. The original idea of Totsuki. That's what it is, and then Central comes in to shake that up.
I mean, it just didn't feel like the original idea was even that, like, set in stone, because it sort of seemed like they were going loose leaf with everything.
I mean, they outright say that it is. Yeah. There's a bit when Senzan Domo, the former head before his son-in-law comes in, says this is what Totsuki was founded on, and he basically says that. That's basically the statement. But in any case, to bring people into the know who might not watch the show, Shokugeki no Souma is an anime about a culinary academy, and it follows a specific character, Souma, Yukihira Souma, who is kind of like this your standard character. You're kind of like a what's the word that I want to look for? He's kind of like your tramp and Lady and the Tramp. He's like kind of like rough around the edges. He is irreverent. He doesn't have any official education when it comes to culinary arts. He just ran the diner with his dad, who we at a point find out is like this legendary chef, world renowned, dominated Totsuki whenever he was there before he left.
I mean, he was only second seat, so
right. And
didn't dominate.
Right. And Yukihira ends up being forced to go to Totsuki by his dad because his dad decides he's going to go on a journey. And obviously, as we know with hindsight, Joichiro, his dad, knows that he wants to send him there so that he can learn, because it's time for him to learn like he did. He didn't think that he could teach him anything anymore at the diner. And so Yukihira kind of just comes into this school that's established. It's like an academy system where you can start there in middle school. He's transferring in high school. So all the characters that we see have already been there for 3 years and are established in the student body, know the ways, and he comes in and is just like, I'm going to be number one. Fuck all you guys. Like, y'all haven't run a diner. Y'all don't know what cooking is.
That's interesting. I probably should have realized that, but I did not realize that they could have been at the school for a couple years before. I sort of thought it was like a high school that you had to get accepted into, and I thought that they all kind of got accepted in, but they had been like I sort of thought he came in partway through the semester, which is obviously what you're saying makes more sense, that he came in 3 years after basically everybody else that had been in for a while. But I thought he sort of just busted in partway through the semester, and then he's sort of shown above everybody. But
he transfers in for the start of the first high school year.
Cool.
For his class.
Yeah.
And I don't know that all of the characters that we end up knowing have all been there for the 3 years of middle school.
Right.
Maybe like the Aldini brothers transferred in 2 years into middle school or something like that. It doesn't outright, like, as we get the character introductions, it doesn't outright say he's been here for 3 years, he's been here for 2 years, anything like that, But I know that Megumi has been there for the 3 years of middle school, I'm pretty sure. So I think that it can be assumed that everybody that we end up seeing has been there for, at a minimum a couple of years. And then Yukihira comes in and, turns everything upside down.
Yeah. Well, okay. What did you think about the anime? Well, did you obviously that was a nicely well written intro for it.
Thank you.
So do you think that was your favorite anime of all time? Does it, because it's probably I'd probably throw it up in the top, but I don't know if I'd ever put it on top.
I think that it's my favorite.
Okay.
Really?
That's the vibe I was getting from your intro, which was, I really liked it.
Thank you. There are things about it that I recognize are not as good as other shows. I think that currently, the best thing that is happening in anime is Boku no Hero Academia. I think that is hands down the best show. Might possibly be one of the best anime, objectively speaking, of all time.
Yeah.
There are other things that obviously stand out, Ghibli films and, all sorts of, legendary, a phrase that I always use whenever we're talking about things, cultural touchstones of anime, Cowboy Bebop, things like that will always be on top and always be referenced for all time. But I think that My Hero Academia is up there.
Yeah.
And while I know that is a better show overall as a package from an objective standpoint, I am consistently more excited for Food Wars.
Nice. Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, so what do you think, Kenneth? Where does that rate on your sort of scale?
Honestly, I feel like I loved it when I started watching with Will. I feel like I'm starting to cool on it a little bit.
Is it the long wait in between seasons, maybe, or is it just the premise of the show?
I think a little bit of the premise of the show, just how everything comes down to explaining what they did,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it gets a little tiring for me. And I think if they keep on building on what they got with more character development and stuff like that, which I'm sure they will, and I hope they will, then I think I'll be back in. But especially this season, I felt like it was just Shokugeki after Shokugeki,
yeah,
and just explaining how they made it, and there wasn't much inner dialogue between people other than remembering what their interactions were. It was flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Every episode,
right.
Yeah.
And I think I got a little tired.
Yeah,
I can see that.
it is sort of and that is kind of a trope of shonen shows, is that they spend all the time fighting, right, and then they go into depth about how Piccolo learned how to regenerate and all that sort of stuff.
Character development. We're just gonna tell you about it after.
Yeah, exactly. It's a thing that happens all the time.
Yeah.
In different shows, it's just the presentation of this is different in that it's cooking rather than fighting.
Well, this season was special too, because you're right. We started midway into the finale of this all-star Shokugeki between Central and the Rebels, and then that's all we did the whole season.
Yeah.
The last episode had a lot of wrap up, and it had a lot of kind of nice things. Megumi got to go on her journey, and we got to see her learn a lot,
cool.
and stuff like that was more prominent in the other seasons. I think it would bring the show back, because this, you're right, this season was all battles, and I could see that kind of being a little not jarring, but it does take away from the story, I'd say, a little bit, because I feel like the whole time we kind of knew who's gonna win. I feel like the good guys usually always win, but maybe we don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And And so I guess this season I was just kind of like waiting for to like figure out how we did win. But I mean, there was always doubt too throughout. I still had faith that it was like a classic shonen and that we'd win in the end, because Souma is not like the most interesting guy. You know, he's basically like what Will and I have described a lot of times now in all of our like, you know, like books and anime that we've watched. It's just like, it seems like everything revolves around one simple character and everybody around them.
Well, they're often a vessel for the viewer.
Exactly.
You know?
And so I don't know, I got that here too, you know. It's just that he was kind of simple, and just like you were saying, like this last season was just like all fighting and no real growth for anybody else, so it just sort of felt like a kind of simple season. But I don't know, I really like the show all in all. The only thing is like, and I always have to say this disclaimer when I tell people about the show, it's a little embarrassing to get like caught watching, because
yeah,
like, it's not like somebody could walk in and be like, oh, what the like, I get exactly what's going on, like, because a lot of times they'll be tasting food and then like, you know, somebody's shirt will fly off because of how amazing it is. It'll knock their socks off basically, you know. But a lot of time it's very sexualized, and I mean, I don't care because I'm used to that just from a lot of anime, but it's one of those things that like I would want to watch on my phone if I was back home at my mom's house. You know, I wouldn't say like, hey, can I throw this up on the TV? And but I wouldn't do that with My Hero either. But like, I would be more willing to be like, hey, mom, watch this. Check out this cool power from this show. Rather than, and the other thing I think I really liked about this show, not to neg it, you know, because that's like a small detail, like a small little thing. Because I enjoyed it all in all, but you know, it is a little embarrassing to get caught. But the other thing I liked was how they were able to implement a sort of superpower element to it. Like, not really a superpower, but like, I hate to say quirk because that's from the other show that we're in, you know, but like, it's just everybody has their own sort of special talent. Yeah. And there's the god tongue. There's the guy that could mimic, I forgot what it was called, tracing. Yeah, he would trace. And so that was pretty cool. And then there's that little girl with like I don't remember what her power was. It felt like she had a power, but I couldn't figure it out.
She like has an inherent knowledge of what's cute.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she's a pâtissière, so she, you know, makes desserts and things like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, everybody kind of has like an individualistic skill set.
And some of them did seem kind of almost like, well, I mean, the trace, that's like superhuman, you know, like that.
Right. Yeah.
That was what.
There's definitely things in the show that are supernatural. Like Erina's god tongue is, you know, obviously like probably the most unreal thing in that show.
You don't think something like that could exist? That I feel like that would exist before palette. Tracing. Yeah, perfect palette. Maybe not innately knowing all the things without training, because I think that's kind of what it insinuated, that she knew everything like from birth.
From birth. Yeah, there was like she was like suckling at her mom's breast and then commented that it lacks depth. Like, so yeah, it's just like an inherent ability.
So that's obviously like that. I don't think that could happen, but I feel like maybe there probably is a quote unquote god tongue out there that could maybe break things down. But
it's sort of like. Like, obviously, there's probably, like, an individual out there who has a better palate than anybody else on the planet, right?
I'm sure there's somebody that can copy.
Just like in the same way that, like, there's an individual out there who is the largest person on the planet. There's an individual out there who can jump higher than anybody else on the planet. Like, all these things exist by nature of existence. But for it to be, like, a defined thing that you have a perfect, like, an objectively perfect palate and everybody can recognize that ability as being set in stone, that yes, you have the perfect palate and nobody will ever be better than you at that, is
that's pretty cool.
Impossible.
And you can't quantify that, you know, taste is subjective. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I love the fact that she's got like the best taste. So they like in I guess it was season 3 that they were doing it, because she had just moved into the dorms with them. They were like all running their meals by her, and she's like, well, hopefully you took my advice and wait, you didn't do anything I said. It's just like, yeah, because I don't want to do that. I want to do it my way. And that was, I don't know, they know what would be quote unquote like perfect, but like it's predictable, I guess, you know. And that was kind of the whole idea behind the show, is that it's not like they're doing the unexpected and the extraordinary. And Will and I were talking before the show about an episode where they were cooking venison, and it was really interesting just having worked with venison like a lot recently, and just like I was paying real close attention, and you know, he was facing off against the number 1 seat, and it was an unofficial Shokugeki, but it was like he was cooking backstrap, and then Souma was cooking like a piece of the thigh. And he did something he learned like from I think season 2, where he minced up the onions and garlic or something, and he like lets it sit on it and like tenderize the meat by like breaking it down. They explain it in the show, but the other guy just had a better cut from the animal, and then like it was like the harmony of like the sauces. I don't know. It was just really fun to watch that. I don't remember why I brought them up, but like it's just I don't know. It's fun watching them go through all the different things with everything.
Do you think you'd ever try any of those recipes with them?
Yeah, actually, I was looking up the recipes, and Will said that there are some online, and I don't think all of them are on there, and I think that they're coming out with a book, or if they don't already have it, with the recipes in it, because I saw that you could buy like the official cookbook of Shokugeki. So, it just the one recipe I did look up, it said 60-minute prep time, 30-minute cook time. I was like, oh my gosh, for a meal that might be impossible to cook.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, we were talking about I remember why I brought up this venison meal, just because they did something that I don't know if you can do with venison, but obviously, I mean, I guess you can do it, but the way they wrote it into the show, Will was kind of I had a problem with it initially, and then Will was like, no, they're doing like the unexpected and the almost impossible. And what he did was he cooked the venison backstrap on like tendons and like the trimmings, like the fatty pieces. And venison fat, from what I understand, you're not really able to use it to cook, because when it like breaks down and gets into like a greasiness, it's very oily and like waxy. And he was using that oil or he was using like the natural oils from like the tendons that it was cooking on, because it wasn't cooking directly on the heat, to add more flavor. And it's cool that he was able to do that. It's just I would like to, I guess now I want to know, like, I wonder if the writer for this really knows his cooking, or is just going off the fact that like they're doing the unexpected and they're making what seems like it shouldn't work blow you out of the water and really really work,
right?
And so
I think
way,
that
it's cool. I guess
right.
I want to know.
I think that it's probably that it's an exercise in displaying the practical element of the theory. Like they by the books and on paper all these things are possible, but it would take somebody near superhuman to be able to pull it off correctly.
Yeah.
And that's what these kids are, is that they're near superhuman cooks in an animated series that can do all the things that, a regular person would have all the difficulty in the world trying to do with a team of people, And so I think that's what it is that these things probably are impossible.
Oh, really?
Or like next to impossible.
Yeah.
But because the conceit is that these people are beyond imagination as far as skill goes, they can do it.
Yeah. I love the sauce element to like everything in the show. It always seems like the sauce comes like really heavily into play, and I like have no experience with sauce.
Same.
So that would probably be the big thing that I would want to actually learn from the show, is like how to do some sauces. What's the French? There's like we should all know. They said it in the show. It's like the base for like a French sauce. It's always what an au jus, something like that, right? Isn't that like, I think there's, I don't know.
That's I don't know what that is. I think that just means kind of like sauce in French. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I know that that's like a popular element, Yeah. So,
I will say I'm really impressed with like the variety of stuff they come up with. And just like, it's all super creative, and it sounds like it'd be awesome.
And it's not just Japanese cuisine either.
Yeah, they go through a lot of different types.
In
of
fact,
cuisine.
they seem to shy away from featuring Japanese cuisine, except for the couple of scenarios where the character in question specializes in it. Like Ishiki's friend or childhood friend, the Soba girl. Her and Ishiki are from like very storied, prestigious culinary families, and so that's their specialty, is Japanese cuisine. Yeah. But they're like the only ones. Everybody else, the only one that comes close to being a specialist in Japanese cuisine that we see regularly, at least, because there's a couple of people in the Elite 10 that do things, specifically like that. But even then, like the sushi guy he just makes sushi. Like he that's pretty much all he does. Yeah. but Souma does, it's just like diner takes on Japanese meals and stuff like that. So even he is not strictly Japanese. He's, doing like a working man's version of Japanese cuisine.
It does feel like a lot of his stuff does feel kind of Japanese to me, I guess. I haven't seen anything like innately. I'm the only one thing I can think of is like innately American, because I know he goes and does like he studies the French cuisine with that one guy. Mm-hmm. And he studies with him at his stagiaire, or however you say it.
The stagiaire or whatever is, I think that's how they say it. Which is, it's like an Italian word for like internship, basically.
Yeah. I feel like there's just not that much American like gourmet food.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, what would like barbecue.
Yeah. I feel like he's done.
That's like, kind of like the only thing that like we created. Like we created jazz and barbecue. Like that's all America's done.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the only thing that I can think of is it was like a burger. Like I'm just imagining burgers. And I don't think they've made one in the show. I know he did.
That might not even be American.
He did one. He did this.
It's just ground meat. I think that it comes from. I think it was originally a German thing.
Yeah, I think there was like an Earl like that made the sandwich, like that,
oh yeah, that's like the story. Yeah,
and then that's probably the birth of that too. I don't know, obviously, but I guess we don't really have a whole lot of American cuisine. I did like that episode where he pulled the the two big but wing bones out of the chicken wing, and then he stuffed it with stuff, and then he deep fried them and like Parmesan and stuff, and I think it was right when Central like took over in season 3, and they were like making it so you like no more clubs were allowed, and so they were challenging them to Shokugeki's because that was
to save the clubs,
and that was still part of like the old system before the new system took place. Like they were still allowed to do like the old rules one more time, and then Souma ends up being one of the only like the first one to actually get a fair Shokugeki, but that meal looked really good. The Parmesan kind of throws me off because I think I cooked with Parmesan that day and I had used too much. So I was thinking like, I could see him over. I was judging him. I was like, man, I could see the Parmesan overtaking me. But
right.
I don't know. That was probably like, that was something I had never even thought of, to stuff into like the wing of chicken and then make it like a little popper or whatever. Like, I don't know. That was cool.
Yeah.
Usually you would stuff things with meat.
Right.
Not stuff meat. Except for like turkeys. Like obviously people stuff turkeys for Thanksgiving. But that's kind of like the only time that frequently happens, at least, I guess. Obviously you can do anything you want in the kitchen. It might not turn out well, but you can do whatever. But yeah, it's typically you put meat into things, not the other way around.
We should have cooked for this podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
So, do you ever watch this show and you're not eating?
No.
I'm always eating when I watch it.
I gotta be eating.
I don't keep many snacks around the house, so pretty frequently I don't have anything to eat. Like if I'm going to eat something, it's because I'm making a meal. So, and oftentimes I will, schedule watching anything around, okay, I'm going to have dinner in about an hour, so I'll get that ready, and then I'll sit down and watch stuff while I'm eating.
I just kept finding things to eat. Like,
yeah.
I did that. Like I scheduled my meal.
It's easy to want to. I always think, why don't I keep snacks at the house?
I just kept like eating, and like I'd go off and like I don't even think I would cook. I cooked a little bit, but I was like cooking small things like throughout, and then I found a way to eat for like 2 hours while watching. Like, this isn't good. I shouldn't keep eating. But it was Super Bowl day, so I was like, whatever. I'll be eating like everybody else.
What is your favorite dish that they've done?
The venison one, just because I paid so much attention to it. Like I really watched him do it, and I that's when I wanted to get it, like learn how to do a sauce, because I feel like that would really bring my venison, my cooking venison up a notch. Like if I could learn how to make like a nice, well, he had like a red and a gold sauce, so one was the base for the other. Like the gold was the base for the red sauce that he did, like red wine vinaigrette or something in there too. But that would be cool. I'd like to learn, like make that recipe. I'd like to try some of the doing the onions, the onion and garlic thing, that like where you
to break down the meats,
to make the meat more tender, and him doing that with venison. Like both of those venison meals, and then having the Shokugeki about that one was really just personally interesting for me, just having recently spent a lot of time handling venison, so that was why I think it stuck to me. But yeah, so I think that was my favorite.
For me, I think it's either the bear one The bear was really cool.
Bear versus alligator. Or
No.
croc or whatever?
Whenever he's fighting Hayama, when they're still in still in the Totsuki train arc.
Doesn't he use like berries that the bears eat or something? Or
yeah.
I don't know.
It's so in depth.
It made my mouth.
The amount of research that they do to come up with these outrageous ideas is certainly what I think that the bear one really accentuates that level of research that they do.
Yeah.
For him to, one, go through all the troubles of making bear tasty and not smell terrible. And part of that is using the berries that bears eat because you are what you eat in a way where, whatever it is that you eat, you then, to some varying degree, then taste like that thing that you've eaten because it is now inside of you.
Yeah. So those flavors are just like complementary. Like,
right.
There's a bear that is like a rare bear that you can eat. It's called a blueberry bear. And it's a bear that is gorging on blueberries right before hibernation, and he's eaten so many blueberries that it tints the fat and the meat a bluish color.
Like flamingos and shrimp.
Yeah. And so like that's it. So that's a real bear out there. There's also like the even less common like avocado bear. It's like a bear that like goes through these valleys and
that's the kind of bear I want to be. I want to be an avocado bear.
But yeah, the blueberry bear is like it is a real thing, and I've seen it on like Meat Eater. I've seen him talk about eating it, and that was kind of cool because like that bear ate so much blueberries that it like it seeped into the meat. But I have also heard of bears like when during like the salmon run or whatever, like they eat so much fish that the bear smells fishy, like, and that would honestly kind of gross me out. I've never had really an issue recently, as of the last couple of years, with like a quote unquote gaminess, because I don't treat anything as being gamey. I treat it as like that's just what the animal tastes like. I'm used to cow eating corn. That's what I'm used to eating, and even grass fed cow is different tasting than corn fed cow. So just. I try not to think of the word gamey because it has a negative connotation, and every time it gets thrown around in this show, it like they made it sound like bear meat smelled bad. I've never skinned and butchered a bear, but the only bear meat I've ever heard of that smells bad is the fish one. The one that ate a bunch of fish. So I know they're filling to appease the masses, but like dealing with a bunch of wild game and cooking wild game, I don't like the word gamey, but I can't. I'm not going to change. That's not like a complaint for the show. It's just that is just something that I've thought about a lot. I like that bear meal was cool.
Yeah. That was either that one or the seafood ramen one from like the first season, or I think
from the autumn elections. Yeah, that was a really good episode.
He just threw like every kind of seafood in the ramen. It was like super spicy too, I think.
I thought he had like a bag of. He always ends up having like bags of.
Well, there was another one though. I'm not talking about the one that Yukihira that he did. It was the seafood guy with the red.
Alice's like assistant.
Yeah.
Who like goes psycho when he puts his headband on.
Yeah.
Nice. Forgot about that.
Yeah. I think that was the final when it was him, Hayama, and Souma going for it was a 3-way battle.
Yeah.
And I think that was that one. In the autumn elections. That was such a good series, the autumn elections. I thought that it was great.
Yeah.
That's probably there's a lot about the train arc that I really like, but I think that the autumn election arc was probably my favorite series of episodes.
Yeah. What was your favorite meal?
I think that it's the bear as well.
Yeah.
I think that episode, there's so many things about that episode that are great. I think there's like 2 episodes really. Because it's a saving Hayama from Central, reminding him who he is and all that sort of stuff, and go through that sort of like character stuff. Both of the meals by both Hayama and Souma were really good and enticing and interesting in the way that the show makes dishes interesting. And we also get to see Alice's dad. For the first time, he's the judge. He's got the glasses and the really heavy, like kind of like lightning bolt eyebrows.
Yeah.
And it's also an introduction of a new version of the ability that the Nakiris have, where for the longest time we had only seen Erina's grandfather just go bare chested whenever something was so good, but then. Alice's dad, who I can't remember his name right now, his version of that bloodline trait is that he makes other people's clothes explode off. And it's just like really interesting to see that, because it's just like stupid, goofy stuff.
It's weird that they show all those like orgasmic moments where everyone's clothes are ripping off, but it's not actually ripping off, right?
Most of the time it's not, but with the Nakis, they literally are, yeah. Everything else is, like their like internal vision of, what it's making them feel like. It's such an amazing flavor or whatever. Which is something that they sort of kind of got away with, or got away from in the last couple of seasons, where like in the beginning, whenever we're seeing Ariana describe things, she's always coming up with like these absolutely bizarre descriptions of stuff. Like it's like, I'm in a onsen and then there's a gorilla or something. Like it was almost perfect, but then there's a fucking gorilla there, like and it's always these like elaborate scenes that are being painted. And that was sort of like the other side of the same coin of everybody having like the orgasmic moments or whatever. And then they kind of got away from, like, Ariana doesn't do that anymore after like the first season and a half. Yeah. Probably because it was too much to come up with those descriptions. It was like too much effort to come up with like the most like outlandish thing that they could come up with after like 6 or 7 of those instances.
Did you read the manga for this, Will?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I have not either. But
because I want to watch the show. Is what it is.
The show's awesome, and the one thing I guess I just wanted to say about like giving the show a little more props is like I noticed in season 3 like the intro and the ending change have like partially through. Like
usually that's what happens every cur. So whenever you have like a 12 or 13 episode, like a cur is a 12 or 13 episode segment, and in like the 3rd season where there's 24, 25 episodes, that's a 2 cur season, and typically. Almost universally, I've never seen it not be this way. Whenever you enter the new cur, you get a new intro and ending.
Well, this one had something at the end of season 3 where it changed like the last 3 episodes is when I started noticing. And I mean, I guess if that's the end of the cur, then maybe. But it was sometimes
they'll do it for effect.
Yeah, and well, it fit in perfectly with what they were talking about because it was all about how Yukihira's dad was. It was like the flashback episode for him talking about his time at the university and where how like. He was just like he was having a great time learning how to cook and like he was having fun cooking, and then he took on that team Shokugeki on his own, and he sort of almost got full of himself where he was like unbeatable, and then he wasn't having fun anymore, and then it showed like the imagery of him like traveling through a desert and like some messed up clothes and like really struggling, and then like by the end of the episode he's like, I wonder how Yukihira I don't think he would have said Yukihira. That's his last name. I wonder how Souma would have done doing this. And it just shows basically him and Souma in the same clothes that his dad was in, but he's got a smile on. He's not as tired.
Right.
He's just like he never loses that passion for creativity and growth and the fun in cooking, And then right after that, the ending credits were them going through like weathering the storm like together. It was like that story again, and I was like, man, and it was like them like laying side by side, and that was like the ending for the next couple episodes. And I was just like, man, that's cool. Like I don't notice that normally with anime because a lot of times I'll skip the intro and the ending, and that one was just one that I was like, oh damn, that's cool. Like they put a lot of extra work into it. I thought, I guess I didn't know either that that's a common thing in anime that they'll have like through different like arcs they'll have different endings, because I know through different seasons they'll have different endings and stuff, but I never noticed like in mid season. So this was like one of the first times I noticed that, and it was right at the end when a big thing happened, and it was like wrapping it up in it's almost like the ending song was just kind of trying to give like more justice to like the scene that happened, and it was really cool. It was really well done.
There's one of my favorite things that happens in anime is when they then reprise the original opening song. And like in Shokugeki's case, like the opening sequence for the first season is by far the best. That song is great. The opening is great. It sets the stage and the tone of the show like perfectly. And there's a point I think it might be in the 3rd season, maybe it's in the 2nd season, I can't remember, but there's a bit towards the end of the season where something's happening, and they do another thing that is one of my favorite things in anime is whenever this episode or the season is ending and they don't show the credits, they just start playing the music over the top of what's happening, and it's like it's like really emotional and all that sort of stuff. But in this
season,
They'll definitely it happens a lot whenever something extremely dramatic is going on, and they need that extra 2.5 minutes of runtime to be able to get apart what it is, across what they're trying to get across before getting into the next episode. But there was a point in the third season where they do that and they reprise the original opening song, and I was like, this is just the greatest thing ever. I love that kind of stuff. And that opening, like I said, is the best of the rest of them. And a lot of them are also really good as well, but that one's just so good. I think that it's a perfect, distilled moment of the entire series. It is that opening, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I know the song, but it's I'm sure when it came on, it made me just as happy. Because I know that exact feeling you're talking about, just when they play it over. And that's always a cool scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did y'all think of the ending? How they won and how all that went down? Because it was partly they won because of that dude's power to blow everyone's clothes off. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was gonna be kind of a throwaway joke, Right. But then he
is I thought it was pretty cool. Betrayed by his base instincts. Yeah. He knows that it's a great dish. Mm-hmm. In his mind, he doesn't want to admit it because it goes against everything that he's trying to accomplish by, with Central and eliminating originality. Because his whole thing is that he was Jorichiro's, kohai and really respected him and saw the fall that he went through, being the constant pioneer and being alone in that and how it broke him apart. And so he was like, I don't want anybody to ever have to do that because that ruined him as a chef. And we should all continue to want to be chefs or whatever. Like you said, he's got benevolent intentions. He's just misguided. Yeah. And so, it's against him to see his daughter do these original and, rebellious things against him. But he knows that it's an incredible dish. And so, his clothes exploding off just betrays him. And, that's how they win. I thought that it was a really good ending. Me too. For the season. Hopefully not for the series. The manga has completed. I'm not sure how much further ahead it is than where we are in the season, or the series right now.
I was a little worried because it felt like a series.
It does feel sort of like an ending. Yeah. It's kind of the thing is that it can. I think that they can get away with making it feel like an ending because it is an ending of sorts where we get through the most major conflict that has happened so far in the series. Mm-hmm. We're also sending off all the third years, like Rindo and what's his name, the number one seed. I can't remember his name. White hair. They go off because they've graduated now, and they're going out to do their thing. Other third years, graduating like Ishiki. So it is an ending because we're losing characters and we're going to get new characters presumably. And then our main characters, at least as our main three are. Souma, Erina, and Megumi. They're progressing on to be second years now, and they're kind of running the show. So it does.
That was kind of weird. What's her name? Erina. Mm-hmm. Is they're the director now or something?
Yeah.
that's weird.
Well, because it has to be someone from the Nakiri family.
But she's still a student.
But why? Why does it have to be?
Yeah. Because it's it's just the...
Because it's tradition? Because that's dumb.
Yeah, because... Well, in the same way that, the Patriots are probably always going to be owned by the Kraft family,
I don't get that reference.
They don't own the school, though, do they? Or do they?
I don't think that they do.
Yeah, so I didn't understand why it had to be her.
Well, because it couldn't be... now that... her dad has been removed from office, and because he was already at one point and failed, and so he was I failed to maintain and let this happen, so the code of honor, I'm not going to then try to take the spot back or whatever. Alice's father is got his research facility in Finland or wherever it is, and so he's busy doing that, and so she's next in line.
Yeah,
it seems silly that she's still in school. Now she's the director.
That's probably the.
I thought it was going to go to Souma's dad's friend, or the third guy in the group.
Oh,
what he does, but he owns some huge.
He owns he's the head chef at the Totsuki Hotel.
Okay.
Dojima Senpai, the bald guy who's always wearing a brown suit. Yeah. He's always stretching in the bath.
I mean, who's the?
I thought for a second that it was going to be Joichiro. I thought it was going to be Soma's dad.
I didn't.
And then whenever they explained that, like, no, the director is always a Nakiri. I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I kind of took that as like the director had always been, not like it has to always be a Nakiri, because that's kind of weird to me. I don't know. It's not like a huge complaint, I guess. It's just I agree with you, Kenneth. I think that her being in school still and then being in charge of the school is very weird. I don't think that makes sense academically, for one. So if I ran UT and then I also was going to school there, like I would definitely give myself a diploma,
right.
But of course, I'd probably get an honorary diploma if I was elected the owner of, the University of Texas. So I don't know that. Of course, my family hasn't owned the University of Texas for generations, so
right.
That is what they're doing with her. But I don't know. That was.
I mean, it's a fictional world. I mean, you're kind of getting in the weeds about something weird, you know.
For them to go into all this detail about the food, for them to just throw it away, like, okay, now she runs the school. It's like that was a big deal. That was 2 seasons figuring out who's going to run the school, and now you're just like, I mean, it was already basically run by the kids and like the inspiring ones, by the Elite 10, but like. I guess that was a creative way to make her not in the Elite 10 and still have Souma be number 1 in the Elite 10. And like, I feel like that would, because she is the director now, I feel like that would be a good way to end the show, because I don't know where they can go now.
It seems like that should have been like after she graduated. Now she's a director. Or something like that.
Yeah, like that, like the Shokugeki of Shokugekis, like that super final last one, like that. That should have been maybe the end of the show. I don't know. I just, I don't know where.
I'm not sure where they would go from at this point either.
Yeah,
I really don't know. But I don't think that I ever really knew. Certainly, like even after like the first season, I was kind of like, okay, well, how far can they go with this premise where it's like he's already gotten into school and he's overcome the adversity of being the new guy that made everybody mad at the commencement ceremony, and he's kind of like, not at that point had he won over Arena, but had kind of made headway into like her personality. And it's, you don't always have, because for the first season she's the bad guy, she wants to kick him out of school, and kind of gets past that barrier in the first season. And I was like, but how are they just going to constantly, like, we're going to get like 8 seasons of him climbing the ladder through food battles? Like, I don't know how they're going to do it. And they ended up doing a really good job of delineating from that path and doing the things that they've done in the successive seasons with the train arc and blah blah blah. So I've already been in this spot where I didn't know what they were going to do, and they delivered. And so hopefully they'll continue to do that in the coming seasons.
I mean, you kind of knew what they were doing, though, right? Like, I kind of knew what they were going to do the whole time.
Yeah, you knew eventually they were going to try to get to the top 10. And
that's the goal.
You didn't know that Central was going to come, obviously.
No, I didn't,
like,
Yeah, but you know that in the same way that we always knew Naruto was going to be Hokage at some point.
I didn't know that. I mean, I kind of believed he would be, but like I didn't know until Boruto came out that he was Hokage. Because I quit watching it. It took too long for him to become Hokage.
I think it was too obvious that he was going to be Hokage all along. It was just, but there's so many things that happen in between, like having to go through the Third Great Ninja War and the, seasons long fight against Orochimaru and saving Sasuke and all these things, these parts along the journey. But the end thing is still, he's Hokage, because that's not what's important.
Well, that's probably too why it's surprising that now they just run the school. Like, it just, after 3 seasons, they're done. Like, I feel like they're done now. Whereas in Naruto, after 3 seasons, it was like he's not even a Chunin. He hadn't even passed the Chunin exam. Sasuke just left. Like, I mean, there was all this internal turmoil, and I don't feel like that there's much of that here.
But it's like any story. Like, we always knew that they were going to destroy the ring in Lord of the Rings, right? Like, you always know what the end is. And what it matters and why you continue to watch something or go back and read something again or, buy all the merchandise is because of how good the journey to that endpoint was.
Oh, yeah. Well, the journey's good. I'm just saying I wasn't able to predict maybe the train arc and stuff, but I don't know. I didn't feel like anything was too out there, too like unpredictable. It felt like a fun, steady, good story. Like, I don't know. I kind of felt like I knew the goal where they were heading that whole time. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think everybody did in the same way that you always know what the end point is of any story.
Well, then what are you saying?
That I didn't know where they were going to go. At a more what's it called? The opposite of big, not small, but the more like
micro level.
Yeah, at a micro level, I didn't know what was next. I knew that the series is going to end by them being at the top, or we'll get like a post-credit scene where like Souma goes back to the diner, that sort of stuff. Like those, the end point, unless it's like an absolutely insane story, is always known. But how do you get there? And so knowing, after the first season, I was like, okay, well, obviously the series is going to end with them being at the top or whatever, or graduating or whatever it's going to be. Or he starts a diner in Alaska or something, just something like he's going to get to his goal, obviously. But I didn't know what was going to then happen in the second season. How are they going to? I didn't like I had said. I didn't know how they were going to continue with what they were doing at that time. Yeah. Like to get to the point, you have to do different things, and certainly if you're going to be like several seasons long, how do you keep that fresh and do something different? I didn't know what they were going to do that.
Yeah, it does feel like they put a lot of story in like one cumulative like year for this story. Like the timeline, we've only gone through one school year, but it's been 4 seasons, which is a lot of info. And I honestly, I hadn't been thinking about it too hard until watching a ton today and realizing they're all still in their first year. I honestly, I hadn't thought about it too much. I thought that since the goal was the top 10, that like they were probably in the second year now, because they had done so much, like so many big things. Like they have these different like festivals that they go through. I'm like, how many festivals do you have a semester in this school? Like, I don't know. It was, to me, it felt like they were moving really good at like a fast pace. Like I feel like they could have maybe made it so that this was like his 3rd year at the school, but they just shoved it all into 1 year, and they were like challenging the top 10 so quickly. He like immediately started challenging like the number 1 seat, and then they just started having these the big like Shokugeki showdown with the Central. I mean, I guess I didn't see any of that. It felt quick. I don't know. I'm not really complaining because I enjoyed it. It felt like they stuffed a lot into 1 year, and I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious just like where they go from here. Like I don't know if they're gonna be able to keep it interesting going forward. If they're already at the top, like what's the next thing? Like the first year is gonna start challenging them, and I don't know.
They run into a new prodigy.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're not gonna be able to stuff as much, like you're saying, into the second year as they did the first year. I think I would be kind of happy if it ended right here, honestly.
Yeah, it would be fine. I don't think that we need to see the entirety of their high school career.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see like the ending you were describing, where he like opens up his own diner or something. That'd be really cool.
That's definitely like a post credits of the series finale sort of thing. Like
awesome.
Like all shows, anime or not, you get the wrap up and you see where everybody is, 10 years down the road or however many period of years. So we'll definitely see something to that effect whenever it's all said and done.
Yeah.
But I think that, it really could be done here. The manga is completed.
Should we check?
I don't know how much further it is. That's the thing, is I don't want to check. Like I haven't read I want to read the manga, but I don't want to because I want my first experience with the story to be the show as it happens. Because it's just that good. And I want to experience it in that fashion rather than reading and then watching the show and being like, oh, I know what happens next. And you're like, I don't want that.
See, I honestly, I don't mind doing that too much because exactly what you're saying, like the journey to the end goal is always fun, and I don't mind getting it like side by side like that. But yeah, when you want your first experience for the show to continue to stay the show, rather
because you only get one first time experiencing something, you know.
And a lot of times I would go back and reread the manga to see if I could get more details or whatever because I was not happy that it was over. Like I was satisfied, you know, but I was on a personal level. I was like, man, I want more time with these people, and so I would always kind of seek out. That's I think how the manga started for me. Just manga reading started just because I got obsessed with certain shows and I just wanted to keep going.
Right.
Yeah, I think that if it does continue, it won't be at the school because there's nothing left to do. And it's not like the name of the show is called School. Like the name of the school is called Shokugeki. It's like all about food battling, you know. And they can do that anywhere.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that would potentially be interesting to have like an adult years
like opening
season.
I don't even think that. I think that they would be sophomores in high school studying abroad or something. Like I don't think it would be at this school. I think they would go somewhere else because they mastered this. They beat everybody.
Right.
They beat this gym on the next.
Yeah, I really don't know. I think
it'd be
kind
fun.
of already said it like 3 or 4 times. I don't know what it is that they could do next.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, I didn't know what they were going to do next after the first season. And so I have faith that they will deliver whatever it's going to be.
Yes, and I'm hoping that it's not over, even though it'd be fine if it was. But.
Like you never want something that you love to end, right? But it has to at some point, and oftentimes for the better, because if it drags on forever, then you're Walking Dead, which somehow is going to have another season this year, and that's just such a terrible show because it's lasted way too fucking long.
Yeah,
it lasted too long after 2 seasons. Like they should have cut it after the first season, I think.
Yeah, I mean the premise of that show is that you don't get an ending like that. That's what the authors of that specific story were intending, is that it would be the zombie story, that you don't get just this ambiguous ending. Like they have to deal with all the repercussions of the zombie apocalypse. So I honestly, when I heard that was their premise behind it, I was like, oh, they're gonna probably keep it going too long. I didn't think. I thought with the comic, not the show. You know, I thought they'd have to wrap the show up, but obviously they haven't. So
there was a commercial for the coming season in the movie that I saw earlier. Yeah, there's a new season coming. Daryl is still alive.
Nice.
Michonne is still alive.
Rick?
I did not see Rick in this trailer. Those are the only 2 characters that I saw and recognized.
Yeah.
And Daryl's not even like a main character in the comic.
Right.
I think he's embodied in like Tyrese and a few other people. But,
yeah, he just as a character kind of overtook the show. He's like easily like the most popular character in the show. Period.
He makes so much money at book signings too. Well, not book signings, like at like Comic Cons. Like
I bet. Yeah. Norman Reedus is in high demand as a figure. I mean, he's in that fucking Kojima game. But I would be fine with it being done here too. And it would probably be something that if it was done, I would look back on it in the coming years and recognize that was the appropriate time for it to end, and it's better because of it.
I think so too. I think if they go any further, it's going to start getting worse and worse.
It certainly could. I think that, and this is something that Jordan and I have talked about several times, the amount of care that goes into this and My Hero Academia is sort of unparalleled in the shonen landscape because they aren't committed to having to have an episode every week like Naruto. And so there's no filler. They wait for the source material to flesh out as far as they need it to have a fledged out season, and then they do so. And so I don't think that it's going to continue to the point of falling apart, because there is, and certainly with the manga being completed, there is an end goal.
That's true.
Or an end point story-wise. And so they would have to, if they decided they were going to continue on, they would then be creating new original content for that purpose. And I don't think that they want to start, I don't think they want to get into that. Not having to focus on needing an episode every single week, 52 weeks a year like Naruto and Bleach did before it was done, shows that there's a level of care and dedication to the project that I don't think that it'll come to that.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of growing in popularity in anime. Like you're saying, it's been with My Hero Academia, like that's something that they're doing now. They're taking the time to not put any filler in there because it's frustrating. I'm watching a show right now that is weekly and it's good, but I definitely see why it's not as big as My Hero Academia and other shows, because they have the filler, they have just fluff weeks, they have episodes that are just all telling us shit we just saw, you know, so I don't need to re-see all this. I've been binge watching the show.
You get fucking 20 minutes of Goku staring at Vegeta.
Yeah. And so this is, if it was going to continue, I would be a little more worried about like the love interest, because I feel like he's kind of invested in both of the main girls, like Irina and Megumi, thank you. But I mean, I feel like Will and I talked about who like he should end up with, or like if he's following like a traditional shonen like story, but like if they fledge that out anymore, like it could go. For me, it felt like it could go either way with his love interest, and I kind of like the ending. If it is this right here, it being kind of ambiguous with like him working closely with Irina, yet Megumi still like obviously like they're dorm mates, like they're close, and like they'd gone through all the like they've been through like everything together. Like she was at his hut or whatever when he was doing that like Chinese food cook off against the second year guy that joins their team. Forgot his name. He's cool though. I like him a lot for some reason.
I think it's Kuba. No, the Chinese specialist with the yellow hair.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then
I think it's Kuba.
Kuba.
I think so.
Okay. They're like army of minions cooking.
Yeah.
He's just like Central.
Right. Yeah.
Who do you like best among the women? Like who do you think?
Who's best girl for Kenneth?
Yeah.
Who's best for the show?
No, I feel like the show would probably be like Souma and Irina open up their shop together or something. They work together, creating new ideas, always button heads, you know, to like improve their creativity. And then Megumi would be, I think, the love interest.
That's what Jordan and I were talking about earlier. That I think that if, you know, to reference the most popular thing that has ever happened anime-wise, Naruto, I think that the insinuated structure of the character relationships in this show is that Soma and Erina are like your Naruto and Sasuke. Like they're rivals. They go like they work together and like accomplish goals through each other and do that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's that as well. Yeah, or like Gohan and Trunks. And Megumi is the Hinata character, which is the person that Naruto ends up marrying. Well, I suppose so. Yeah, from a Dragon Ball perspective, not a Z perspective. But in any case, that's the way that I interpret it, is that Megumi is the one that would end up being the person that Soma ends up with, and Erina continues to be that constant rival of growth.
That makes sense.
And then that they provide in the same way that a lot of shows do, not even just anime, but like movies and stuff like that. They provide hints and clues at everybody having different conflicted feelings about each other, and like, what does that mean? Or am I in love with him? You know, all that sort of stuff. And definitely Erina experiences that a lot.
That's what had me a little confused, because I could never tell who was the main like interest, if it was supposed to be kind of like a harem style where like all the girls were into the one guy, or if it was supposed to be like, you know, just like traditional like shonen anime where it's like the not so outspoken kind of like shy girl.
He's also like, totally clueless about that sort of stuff. Like it's romance is not on his radar.
Oh yeah.
He only cares about cooking.
Well, that's why I think it was so hard for me too, because I felt like the romance was in the hands of the women, and it's in the hands of the female characters.
It often is in these scenarios.
Both of them experienced different things that made me think like Irina's way more, you know, like powerful. I feel like, or you know, way more like a leader. I feel like she would be the one to actually make a relationship happen, where Megumi would like hope that they stumble into one, you know, that would be probably how they would end up together, and Irina would probably like be too proud to ever like, you know, romantically get involved. I mean, but it was just, it's hard for me to see it, I guess, from the outside looking in, like who is like the intended end love interest, you know, like
I agree with that. I think Irina is the more like realistic one, or part, like should be the love interest, but I think story-wise, it just kind of makes sense going the other way. And
I think because she matches him so well in all aspects of their characters, Arena.
Okay.
I think because they match so well in all aspects of characteristics, that is why they wouldn't end up together. Because she has to continue to be the piece of steel that he sharpens against, and the other way around as well. And for them to enter into a romantic relationship, story-wise, that doesn't flesh out.
I mean, it worked well in Sword Art, right? Like the main girl and the main, like this badass girl and this badass dude, like they got together and they were both strong, independent. Like it's not like he ended up with.
Yeah, but then they push Asuna to the side until the most recent season, and she ends up not doing hardly anything for several seasons.
Yeah,
and that would be that's why typically, now obviously somebody could do it successfully, I'm sure, in the same way that anybody can cook the fucking backstrap on top of the tendons. Like you can, these things are possible and can be done. Very difficult to do so. And generally speaking, whenever you then take your secondary main character who originally was there to help prop up the main character and the other way around as well, if they then enter into some sort of like enhanced relationship, one of them is going to suffer character-wise.
That's also why they typically throw it at the end too. So it's not like you have that like with Sword Art where it's in the middle of the first season or whatever, and then it'll suffer for the rest of the show. But if they do it at the end, I don't know. I don't know. I'm back and forth. I like it too. Like I could see that as a cool ending where they're like a couple, and then the last scene is still them just fucking food wars like all the time.
Yeah, I feel like Arena makes more sense that they would end up together. Like when rereading Harry Potter, Harry and Hermione should have gotten together. That makes more sense than Harry getting with Ginny and then Hermione and Ron getting together. Like it makes more sense because it just does. I feel like in real life that would have just because of how they had to interact with each other, they probably would have ended up together. But it fits a nice mold, and we like Ron, so we want him to get with we like Hermione, so we want them to get together, especially because they both grew and developed into people later. I see that here. It's like I like Megumi. I just don't think that they would ever actually like. Souma is so into cooking that like he would need somebody to just sort of like upend, like they would either, I don't know, I even feel like the accidental scenario that I said where they would accidentally kind of end up together, I feel like it'd be more likely that he would end up doing something romantic accidentally with Izumi, because like I feel like they're challenging each other and there's like that heat and that friction, and Megumi's just such a pushover that I just like in Naruto, like he probably shouldn't have gotten with Hinata. Like that doesn't really make that much sense to me. Like she's such a pushover, and like I never saw them get together, but like I just can't imagine him just being like, oh, now I'm into this pushover. No, like nobody cares unless like she grows a lot as a character, which she has, and she goes and she studies abroad, and that was the whole end scene where she grows as a person too. But it's hard for me to see them ending up together realistically, but like anime format wise, it makes sense that they would end up together. I don't know. It's
just that template that
it's dumb for me to want realism in anime because all of it could happen in any way that it happened. Like there is no mathematical perfect thing for love. So it's silly for me to even pick it apart as much as I am. But I feel like it's kind of almost propping up that it's like I don't know how to say it without it maybe coming off wrong, but it's almost like propping up like these weak characters. Like it's okay if you're on the back burner because it'll work out. You'll end up with the right person if you just stay true. And it's like you won't. You have to make an effort to get with that person, or he'll never see you because he's focused on cooking and he's working with this other hotter girl all the time.
Right. And, but the thing here is that that's not what this show is about. The show isn't about the romantic relationships, No, I know. They can kind of do whatever they want. He could end up with Alice.
Right.
And, there wouldn't have to necessarily be any rhyme or reason. Like, you would, as a viewer and a fan, you would want, at least a serviceable explanation for why he would end up with Alice. But at the same time, it kind of doesn't matter because that's not what it's about anyways,
Yeah, I guess it's just in my head. I feel like it's reinforcing into our culture. At least our culture is, and I feel like maybe that's also too why there's like this kind of stereotype around anime watching, because it might, feel like there's like a lot of lonely guys out there or lonely girls too, that are just out there and they put themselves in these roles and they're like, it'll work out in the end, like it always does in my story. And it's just, I feel like I want to push the message like you're the main character in your story. Like you should believe in you know, like that's the message they're trying to say a lot of times in anime too. Like believe in yourself and like push and always grow and be better for yourself, the best you want to be or whatever. And that's kind of not really, I guess, the vibe I'm getting with these like characters and the like love interest sort of. I don't know. It's silly for me to like just, I guess, have a critique on all anime like that. But I mean, y'all know what I'm saying.
I think that's a good point though. I like that.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth considering.
Yeah, I guess I just wish there were stronger characters or things that happened, you know, might not work out just because we like them, you know.
Right.
But it is a nice show and it's a fun show, so it's good that things work out. It's not like everything needs to be so dark and Game of Thronesy, you know.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. Like I want anime to be to have that like scary realism of things not working out, but I probably wouldn't enjoy as much anime as I do if it was like that too. So
if it was all like that, yeah. I mean, there is anime like that. There's an anime that fits any sort of mold or idea that you have. It's all out there. Is it all available? Not necessarily. Not everything makes it to Crunchyroll or Funimation here in the States. But another thing with like, you know, where you kind of want Erina and Souma to get together and it makes sense on paper is like the same reason that like you want the two best teams in the Super Bowl, you know, like you want to see number 1 and number 1 together, you know, doing the thing, you know, whether it's the competition or now they run the business or whatever it's going to be, you know, like you always want typical kind of human nature is that certainly in American nature where we're constantly the idea of being an American is to progress and grow. Is that you always want to see the best at the best, you know? And so having the pairing of Souma and Erina is kind of like symptomatic of that mentality of course we want the best one to be with the best one because why wouldn't you want that, you know?
Yeah, there's just like a lot of, I mean, I almost don't even, I don't know what I can't get my words out because I feel like that's close to what I was thinking, but
I think it's just part of that idea. I don't think that's probably not like the entirety of your idea, but that's just like a facet of it that, you know, it might lend to that mode of thinking where it is kind of bred into us to want the best to be with the best or against the best or whatever it is, you know, like the cream rises to the top, you know, like fucking Macho Man Randy Savage said. The cream rises to the top, or whatever his fucking voice is. I felt like I had another question that I wanted to pose, but I can't remember it right now. I don't know. I can't think of it.
Why does that one brother lose all the weight again? Like, is it just when he's like serious about
like
cooking
or something, right?
It has to do. Yeah, it has to do something with like his cooking habits. Like, it's you know, it's just like a gimmicky joke.
Right,
it's you know, just a good comic relief to show like, oh, all of a sudden he's thin. What's that all about? Well, see, it happens whenever I'm doing this. You know. So,
and he's like super handsome too. They're both like
right,
you know, and then he goes back to like chubby mode, and he's like, just.
I really want the other brother's knife just for pizza when I make
the Mezzaluna.
Yeah,
cool. Super cool. I had ordered one time, and then Amazon sent me the wrong one. It was like I had ordered like the 15-inch or the 17-inch, and they sent me like the 13-inch, and it was like considerably less. It was like maybe like this big or something like that.
You sent it back?
I sent it back, and then I just didn't order another one. I lost all heart.
Every time they're slurping like noodles in this show, I always think of you, Kenneth, just because I always think of you ramen.
Because you're annoying to eat with.
I just think of you going to actually get ramen. So you go to like the ramen place, so I imagine you being like the customer they're giving this like great ramen to, and it's like, ooh, and like I imagine you getting like the pretty ramen with all the meat in it and all the like fun stuff. Do you have you ever like made ramen like that, or do you?
No, ramen takes a long time to make, I think.
Yeah.
It's all the broth, you know. It takes like, I think typically overnight to let it like sit there and get all the flavors right, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd ever do. And then you like if you want fresh made noodles, that's also another whole thing.
Yeah.
That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. Did you have any recipes you were gonna try? I know you asked me. I didn't.
From Shokugeki?
Or maybe that might inspire you to do something, not necessarily try their exact recipe, but.
Yeah, I can't think of anything I'd really want to try off the top of my head from the show. But I love the episodes where they're just like trying the same thing over and over again and just tweaking it all. And obviously, like all anime has those moments. There's montages of them like figuring stuff out. But like, it really makes me just want to like try to just start cooking more. You know?
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Will? Are you inspired to like cook anything, or have you been inspired from this show?
Yeah, it definitely gets me feeling that way. Wanting to try something new or do something, or whatever. In the same way that, I have fleeting moments of inspiration from a bunch of different things. I never follow through. But yeah, definitely, it sometimes makes me think, well, what if I start trying to learn... Like, at least, certainly after, like, the first season, I was pretty frequently thinking, I want to learn more and more about Asian cuisine and how to prepare it and do all these different things. It never came around to doing any of that. I did get a wok, and
nice.
I made stir fry, like, a couple of months ago, just kind of winging it, and it was okay. But, I wouldn't... I might have done that anyways, at some point, because I always have liked Asian food. And so at some point I would have made stir fry in my life, even if only once.
Yeah. I mean, my only thing was the sauces. I keep thinking about those. Do you guys know how to make sauce?
At a very basic level.
Yeah. What kind of sauce?
Well, I mean, I guess really kind of just anything. Because at its base level, you're just distilling down something. You're depending on what it is, you might be reducing like an actual like hard item, like the tendons in the the venison plate, like you were talking about. You're either reducing something and getting its condensed version in a sauce, or you just basically like blending liquids. And like pretty much every time that you make a sauce, you cook it, you simmer it for a very long time. And it, evaporates off the liquid component of it so that it gets thicker and all that sort of stuff. And obviously you can do it a million different ways, but that's, at its core, that's kind of what sauce making is, from a starter's perspective.
Is that kind of what you did?
Yeah. I mean, it's always like reducing, like you're saying, the liquids, like typically like some kind of like alcohol too, white wine or something. I feel like it's always shallots. Shallots are always in sauce.
Yeah.
Shallots. What's a shallot?
It's like an in between, like an onion and garlic almost. It's like a small onion.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it interchangeably with onions sometimes, but I think they just have a lot of flavor. Yeah, we made like I think like a béarnaise sauce one time for dipping the steak.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty good.
That's actually what I wanted to like ask, if like you had done something like with like to complement a meat, because the only I mean, I've made gravy, but I've never made like a dipping sauce like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Made mustard one time, but it was stupid because the recipe called for yellow mustard, and I was like, I have to buy Heinz mustard to make this mustard. Right. That's stupid.
That doesn't make any sense at all. That's so weird.
It was really good mustard. Don't get me wrong, but like it was just dumb. I was like,
at that point, you're not making mustard. You're just adding something to mustard.
Yeah, and just
which is fine, but call a spade a spade. Like don't.
Yeah, just name it Jordan's mustard, fancy mustard, or whatever.
Right.
But don't say like I'm making mustard.
You're creating a variation on mustard. Is really what that kind of is. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and that's what was fun about this show is like, your brother Kenneth told us about that Cells at Work, that anime that was he was the one that told me about it, I think.
Okay.
It's this anime where they're inside the body, and we're following around this white blood cell and this
and a red blood cell. The main character that we follow more than anything is the red blood cell, but she's got the white blood cell friend that she keeps running into.
Right. And he's like and he's just like a super awesome
he's like a cop.
And that show's cool because like I was watching it, and I feel like they're trying to teach you like all these medical things, and that's like the fun little side note I think from this show is that I want to believe that like all the food things that they're talking about, they've done research. I mean, the show probably wouldn't have gone on as long as it has if they didn't do some sort of research. If
it was disingenuous, then it wouldn't sell.
Yeah. So watching it, I feel like I'm definitely going to be thinking of things that they do in the show while I'm cooking, whether I do the methods or things that they do or not. That'll be one thing. But it's fun when you can learn like secondhand in a show, just because it's so interesting. Like,
right.
I don't know if I could tell you what I learned though, other than putting onions on meat to make it break. But that's cool because they explained this chemistry where like the onion broke down the meat and made it more tender. So the second watch of this show will be like a study guide maybe. Not really, but I'm sure I'll pay attention to more of the cooking things.
Should we start a cooking club?
A cooking club? I mean, that could be neat.
Our first thing will be sauce, because that's what
Right.
I need more like consistency in my cooking. I try new things every now and then, but I always forget it. A week later, because I'm never gonna do it for like another year maybe. So,
I constantly just wing everything.
Yeah.
Like I might look at a recipe just kind of like as a framework, and it'd be like, okay, so the goal is to break down the meat and to put these things on it. And so now I'm going to go do it some other way. Like it's just kind of like, that's how I get like the idea and like the structure of the, the path, should be, at least adjacent to, and then I end up just winging it and doing something else.
Make it in Central.
I wouldn't. The only time that I really follow things is now that I've got that Instapot. Like you have to follow everything with that, because otherwise you're going to blow up the house, literally. So that's the only time that I like religiously follow whatever it is that I've looked up, is with the Instapot.
Well, I'm definitely going to look up some of the recipes in this, and hopefully I'll be able to get a sauce from it, because I don't think I'm going to copy the recipes, because a lot of them are kind of, they're just foreign to me. Yeah, and a lot of them are just themed in ways that I've never seen. Like, also, I don't think I could tell you what French cuisine is. We went to school with him for like a season with that one guy, and I couldn't tell you what makes it French cuisine, except for probably the sauce. But I like we were doing earlier, I can't remember how to say freaking sauce, and I know that's a thing that that people say in cooking. Like there's always like this base, and if you know how to, I think that there's like a single base that if you know how to do that, you can implement it into like many other sauces. And
it's like your 3 chords on guitar. Like you can get anywhere with very little. With like this one thing, you can get to anywhere else with further education and walking down the path. Yeah. But that's like the starting point, right? Yeah.
Do you know what French cuisine is?
Not. I mean, it's like all just like snails and tiramisu, right? Like that's it.
It's all styles too. Like it's not necessarily it's not like they only cook escargot or something.
Right.
Like it's like they use a lot more sauces in French. They use sauces everywhere else too, but in French it's more about sauces. I'm sure it's different spices that they typically use. You look like Japanese. I think Japanese don't use like powdered spices much. They use like liquids, like mirin, a lot more to get the flavor, and it's all like marinated and stuff. It's all just different styles. Typically it's all meat and typically like rice or something.
Meat and starch.
Yeah, meat and starch. But yeah.
I liked in just like maybe one of the last little notes I'll say about the cooking is in like I think it was in this is either at the end of season 3 or like right at the beginning of season 4, but it was it was one of the Shokugekis they did, and they threw a ton of these chilies into the recipe. It was almost like overwhelmingly full of these red chilies, and it made
that was the alligator dish that Rindo did.
And she said it was like based on a Cajun style meal. There's an American one. We did it. We found the American meal.
Alligators.
Alligators. We eat alligators here in America.
And that's it.
And it's way better than elephant. I think that's what they were eating, right?
He was elephant for some
reason.
reason.
Where do you get elephant?
I mean, he didn't use elephant, I don't think.
Why was he an elephant?
I don't know.
Because I was confused. I was like, I don't think he was cooking elephant, but now he's an elephant and he's fighting this alligator. But have you guys ever cooked with peppers like that? Is basically what I was getting. Like a dried pepper is what they looked like. They looked like dried. Really?
Wasn't it cayenne? Wasn't that the food?
Probably.
I thought they were ancho chilies, which is just like the dried version of a of like a I can't remember, but because like in the same way that like we call dried grapes raisins, like it's the same thing, but because it's in a different state, it gets a different name. The same thing with peppers.
Isn't Chipotle like like just dried jalapeno or something?
Yeah,
like that?
that's all it is.
It doesn't become a chipotle pepper until it ripens on the vine. So jalapeno is not ripe; they're green still, and they'll turn red, and that's when they become chipotle peppers.
Okay.
And then
and you have to dry it. Like
I think
I think maybe I might be wrong, but like every pepper has like a dried and a non-dried form, and they have different names. I didn't know that for a long time.
Yeah. Have y'all cooked with dried peppers though? That's been super.
I don't think that I have. I've only ever used just like regular peppers, fresh.
Yeah.
I don't think that I've ever cooked with anything dried.
I might have done it in like a stir fry or something.
Oh, okay.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched this YouTube channel of it's Liziki. She's this girl in China, and she does a lot of cooking. And there was like one of her neighboring channels that's like, you might like this too. They both, it was another girl in another completely different area of China, like they were and it just they both were using these dried peppers, and then when I saw them do it in the show, I was thinking like, man, that's really cool. I don't know how to do that at all. Like I don't know how you would cook with one. I feel like if you threw it on in a pan, it would burn because it's dry. Like what's it cooking? I always thought it had to do with the water, like that. I guess I thought there was a lot more with the water revolved around.
But usually you would want to let it like steep, and then you get the flavor out of the water that way. Like whenever I make enchiladas, I do that with jalapenos. Okay. I'll like blend them up, first I'll boil them in the water, and then I blend them up and make them into like a puree, and then I use the jalapeno water that they were boiling in as like the base for like the cheese or something. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've done it. But yes, it's about sort of like distilling the flavor into a liquid.
Okay, so you could, so I guess you could take the dried enchiladas or whatever you're using and throw it in some water and make, or you could, I guess you use dry spices that are all ground up in a bottle already. So I don't see why you can just throw it in there.
Like just peppercorn. That's a dried spice.
I'll just have to play with it, because just watching this show and then that YouTube channel, there's so many ways to like preserve food or use a preserved type of food, like just a dried chili pepper. It's really interesting, and just like them adding the element of smoke to a lot of things in this show, having it be like trying to use it as like a complementary flavor. I've only done that successfully, I think, and it being like an original intent behind it like once, and it was when I made jerky not long ago, and it was like I wanted it to have a smoky flavor. And I left it on like the pit for 4 hours or something like that, and then it really had a good smoky flavor, and I was like, that's cool. I've never honed in on the smokiness of the flavor before and actually tried to get it, but I could tell in that jerky, and that was really cool. So I guess I want to do more like stuff like that. Just like,
guys, we should do a cooking podcast.
A cooking podcast.
Yeah.
Cookie cast.
We learn like something new every week or something, and then we talk about it on the podcast.
Oh, God. I don't have time for that.
By the way, it is au jus, I think is what you're thinking.
Hey, au jus.
Or au jus, I don't know how you say it, but
it
means with juice.
AU space JUS.
Yeah.
Nice.
You can ask my mom. She took French in high school.
Parlez-vous français? I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't think I think we got it. Right?
I think so. Yeah, I don't really know that I have too much else to say about it.
Me neither.
Yeah, what stood out like in the show, like
in the season or in the show?
Both. Let's say this season though, to limit it down, because it was a little. I mean, the battles were pretty much what this was.
They definitely. I feel like they went through the battles pretty quick, which I guess there's so many they kind of had to. But a lot of times, like they just started and right away they're like, "I'm ready,"
Right.
Like the first contestant or whatever,
Yeah, I think that at least it's like a standout for the entire series, not just this season. Something that I'll always think about whenever I try to find a good way to define the show is during the train arc, whenever Erina's giving them lessons and they spend like an entire day learning about the 100 different kinds of potato that are in Hokkaido.
Yeah.
And it's such a great example of one, the research that they do to have this knowledge to be able to make it come across properly in the show. And then two, the spirit of the show, where it's about learning how to do something that you hadn't thought of before with the knowledge that you're gaining, through this journey that you're on. The fact that there's like 100 different kinds of potatoes in this one region of a country, this one island, Hokkaido, and that they have to learn the differences of all of them and how they're applicable in different dishes and how you can then come up with an idea of, what to do in a given situation, I think really defines the show in a really spectacular way.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Sounds good.
Anything for you?
I'm trying to think of like if I had to like pitch this show to somebody, like what would be the standing out characteristic, and it's probably just right along that same vein as Will's. It's just like the amount of like, I think honestly I'd probably make it even more simple, and it's less about the anime. It's just that it's a show that they put all like a lot of time and energy into, a lot of focus, and they didn't do any filler. And that's pretty critical for this show since you're kind of learning, some stuff as you go along. It's really fun because it's food. I feel like that really makes a big difference for this, because like if there was filler for this, it would be frustrating because you can tell in filler that nobody's really getting any better or growing, But in this show, you kind of, some of it might even feel like filler just because all they're doing is battling, but they're not. Everything is progressive for the show. I don't feel like there's ever a low point. It's all, very good. But that's not really, I guess, the standout characteristic of this particular show, other than I'd say the research, I guess, that they do into it, and it makes the food really interesting because it has all of our characteristics that we like for shows, or at least that I like for shows. It has like your simple, basic main character that is easy to wrap your mind around. He's consistent. You know what he's going to do, and you know that you can count on him in a pinch. And then we have the interesting side characters, and it's a very good show, and it's just they did the research and they didn't cut any corners. I think that that's all I can say, honestly.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the humor is like the standout thing. It's just unexpectedly funny, like all the time.
Yeah, that's true. I am laughing a lot when I watch this.
There's a bit like I think it's in the first season. It's when they're at the elimination camp at the hotel, and Souma's walking to the bath and he runs into Arina, right? But like it's as the season is ending and they are playing the opening music, but it's just Souma humming it. Like it's not even actually the music. He's just humming the tune, and it's fucking hilarious. It's just such a funny moment.
Like they almost broke the fourth wall or whatever.
Right, yeah.
They did it again in the last episode of this season where they were like, "Are you a new character?" Like they had some random new person.
Right.
And they're like, "No," and he puts his glasses on and it's the same guy. But yeah, no, I like that. It is unexpectedly funny, and that's definitely critical in a show where it's so thought out and serious almost. Like that's good. Makes it lighthearted. I like that a lot. Nice.
Yeah, they weave in the components, pretty seamlessly and perfectly. It's just on the humor. This show is like made me laugh more than almost anything else. I think the single show that made me laugh more than anything was The Devil is a Part-Timer, because it's just a fucking outrageous fucking show. But the humor is 100% here. There's no element of this show that takes a back seat to another element. Right. Which was like sort of something that I touched on the intro that I opened with. Everything is there constantly. It's such a great show. Which we're getting to the point of repeating. But I don't know that I have anything else. I guess.
Yeah, me neither. So next week we're starting High Life, or this week, right? High Life.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. It was the first 7 chapters.
First
7. We're breaking it in thirds.
And like we said, it's by Artemis, or it's the guy that did the Artemis Fowl series. I forgot the author.
I can't remember his name.
But
it's Owen something. Yeah. Very Irish name.
Oh yeah, Baird or something. Yeah, something fun. So just read the first 7 chapters of that, and you know how to find us on Instagram and Twitter at ears_stamps, and then dogearsandtimestamps@gmail.com.
That's about it. Congratulations, Kansas City, for winning the Super Bowl.
Yay.
And taking down California, which is a good thing. Thank you for being on again, Kenneth.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ken.
I hope I can be back for My Hero.
Of course.
Yes, yeah. Look forward to that.
Keep watching the anime.
People at home, yeah. In any case, I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And his Doggers and Timestamps.
Bye.